Yes, I mean you, dear listener. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this Warui Deshou podcast. We're so happy to have the pleasure of your company today. If you've listened to us before and like our show, you might be wondering how you can support us, since we won't take your money. This podcast will continue to be free, but if you'd like to show your appreciation, please consider leaving us a rating and review on iTunes, as those help our discoverability. If you don't use iTunes, that's fine too. You can follow us and like and share our content on SoundCloud and Twitter. Additionally, we love getting your feedback, positive or negative. Tweet us at Warui Deshou or email us at waruideshow@gmail.com. Whether or not it gets read on the show, I can assure you, we all read every tweet and email you send us. And once again, dear listener, we thank you so much. Now please, enjoy the show.
Warui Deshou.
So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Streamer 4 here on Warui Deshou, and I am extremely disappointed. That's not my handle, by the way, that's just currently my state of mind. You could probably guess what I'm referring to. But on this very bipolar of episodes, because once again there are differences of opinion here, I am Shaden, and with me today is a stalwart podcast companion and genuinely awesome guy, even if he does have some questionable trains of thought and logic behind him. It is, of course, none other than the Subtle Doctor.
Hello. Don't hurt me too much.
I won't. I just want to hurt the anime. Just a little. Just a little.
I think it would like it.
Well, is it down for punishment time?
I think it's got a little bit of the Yatterman Night episode 7s about it.
Ugh. Check out that episode, by the way, if it's already out. Link in the description. Okay, no, we're not going to talk about Yasmin Night. We already did that, actually, the day before this was recorded. We're instead going to talk about episode 6 of Darling in the Franxx, which is just called Darling in the Franxx.
I thought that it was just some sort of error by the Crunchyrolls.
Well, I'm going to go with what Crunchyroll put up here, which is that it's Darling in the Franxx, episode 6, Darling in the Franxx of the Franxx, Requiem for the Franxx. It's one of the most redundant things ever.
Fate stay Franks.
Yeah, I think, by the way, that the redundancy of this title also reflects certain elements of this particular episode, and certainly how I felt about it. So there's your cold open, folks. Yeah, I'm not in a happy mood again, suffice to say. If you liked, how I was last week, where I was very positive about the show, no, grumpy old Shaden is back, I'm afraid, the one who's all piss and vinegar. I'm very sorry to say. But carry on we must.
If you liked how positive I was last week, there's more of that from me.
I did tell you all this episode was going to be bipolar, and I meant it. But let's actually discuss what happens in the episode, and therefore I can finally, get this out of my system.
Well, do you mind if we kick off the top, listing the specific episode writer, director, etc. for episode 6?
Oh yeah, I definitely do need to know the name of my enemy.
That's right. You want to know who to name and shame.
Yeah, exactly. Go on.
So on screenplay duty, we have one of the head writers, Naotaka Hayashi, who's written episodes 2 and 4. It looks like this person's on the even-numbered episodes, and I think that this one is a bit better than what they've done in the past. Certainly better than the episode 2, which I thought was the nadir of the show so far.
Well, at the risk of recycling an old joke here, it is the number 2 episode. Are you really that surprised?
No, boy. The episode director. So this is interesting. I could have sworn I checked this and it was someone different than I'm about to list, but I checked it this morning, and I'm glad I did, because Yoshinobu Takashima is the episode director for episode 6. And that is the one and only thing the Anime News Network lists in their CV. There are no other credits to this person's name, which is incredibly interesting.
Were they freshly decanted from, like, you know, an Anime Direct's a cloning program?
I think, yes. Trigger pulled them out of the vat.
Yeah.
It's just a homunculus.
Pretty much.
And there's two more. I want to give credit to a couple more people, but just before you lean in on it, Akira Amemiya is the storyboarder for episode 6, and he is someone I'd like to call the Trigger Man, because
he triggered me all right.
Akira has like been involved in a lot. I mean, almost every Trigger production. He's done storyboards for Kill la Kill. He's worked on Luluco, worked on Inferno Cop. In fact, he's the series director for Inferno Cop. Done some stuff on Ninja Slayer. The director on that, no less, I see, including the animation director on the OP as well. So he was heavily involved with that. So he's doing the storyboarding for our first-time episode director. And finally, someone who I think deserves a nice mention, the animation director for this episode.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. The animation director for this does deserve credit.
Mai Yoneyama did an excellent job, I thought, because the majority of this episode is robot fights, and I thought those were pretty exciting. Yoneyama has worked on... This is another person who's been involved with Trigger. She worked on the Little Witch Academia TV show, and the movie, and the Enchanted Parade OAV, doing key animation directing, and assistant animation directing on those projects. Did some key animation, a little of Fujiko Mine on one episode of that. Has worked with Gynex prior to working with Trigger. Did some panty and stocking stuff as an in-betweener and a second key animator. The biggest line in her CV is on Kill la Kill. So, again, Trigger stalwart here. Animation director for 5 episodes, including episode 25.
Wow.
Yeah. Assistant animation director for 5 episodes, including 15, 16, and 24. So, very, very involved in the denouement of Kill la Kill. And assistant AD for several episodes. So, and Kisniver, she was actually the character designer. And I'm not a big fan of Kisniver, but one thing I think Kisniver really nailed was those character designs. So I consider me a Yoneyama fan generally. I think that she's done good work.
I have to also say that I don't know the person's name, and if you spot this talk, feel free to let me in on it. But one of the things Franxx has done actually consistently well is its OST. And
yes,
there's a metal track that kicks in when the fight starts. And I wanted to start, putting up the horns and doing a little headbang, because it was such a wonderful accompaniment to the fight. And there's a later, more orchestral, somber, almost near-like music piece that plays when things go really badly. And while that scene I was rather annoyed at for a variety of reasons, I can't fault the music for conveying the mood they wanted to bring across. It's just unfortunate the writing didn't, but anyway, we'll get to that.
The music credit belongs to Asami Tachibana, who has done the music for Gundam Build Fighters, and a Try specifically, so the second season of that, and a special and an OAV, and Haikyuu, the first and third TV seasons of that, among other things that seem less consequential, like Seraph of the End and Attack on Titan Junior High.
The fact that the Attack on Titan Junior High even exists as a concept.
It's just so silly. It's really? like the Evangelion Junior High. Just like, why?
Scraping the bottom of the barrel of ideas there. You bottomed out if that's the only thing you can come up with.
That's even worse. It's even worse than Evangelion Junior High, because at least in Evangelion, they are in high school. Like, it's not that big of a departure setting-wise, but the Attack on Titan characters in a school, like, okay, whatever. Let's not talk about it. I'm sorry. Please pretend I didn't say any of this or waste our time.
It's fine. So let us continue with Darling in the Franxx, Episode 6, Darling in the Franxx, Subparagraph 7, Section B.
Bylaw 4.
Yes. And we begin with something that was so silly that, okay, you recall, if you've been listening to this entire stream of thought throughout, you'll of course have listened to our thoughts to episode 5, and I was very excited for what would come next with episode 6, with all the build-up and all of the tension that had been masterfully crafted up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, episode 6 does recognise that has happened and has been built up to, and that they should probably follow through on that. And there are others in which I just have to think to myself, what were they thinking? And not nearly 15 seconds into this episode, that happened with one of the goofiest things I have ever seen. Specifically, I'm talking about the Viking GameCube Klaxosaur.
The bull box. I thought it looked kind of fun and cool.
It's meant to be. This is meant to be like the battle for their lives, and we've got the Klaxosaur bucking Bronco coming over the distance. What the fuck? I mean, I joked previously about the electric shaver Klaxosaur.
Yeah, that one's way worse.
No, it's not.
It is. The Norelco Klaxosaur is like way more. It took me out of it more personally. This one just feels to me like kind of a standard trigger deal. It's very much what I would expect. Like it looks like, you know, it looks like something that would drop out of the sky in Gurren Lagann.
It looks like a robot from Yatman Night. But the problem is, the problem with this, though, Doc, is that this show is not a light-hearted romp.
No, it's not.
So it looks goofy. Like, this is meant to be the coming, like, destruction that's gonna, like, that they're all petrified about. And again, I can only speak to my reactions here, but I had to pause because I was laughing. This fucking thing is gonna be the thing that, like, threatens our heroes and the lives of thousands of people.
It does look like a GameCube. That was a really good shout.
It's fucking dumb. I like the visual design in Franxx, generally speaking, but this is the first real dud. I'm astounded by it. Absolutely astounded by the fact that they didn't... Did they not watch this and just not think this is really goofy?
It's like that the little Klaxosaurs are like, we're coming over to play, and we're bringing the GameCube, because it's in tow.
I'm honestly surprised the thing did not start speaking in Swedish.
Paper Mario, gotta get the memory cards.
I will credit the opening of at least the presence of some broken buildings that we get to see. So we get some more hints about the post-apocalypse that's happened that we'll probably never find out about because I'm rapidly losing faith in this show's ability to properly explain any world building. But I'll get to that. Okay, so what happens next, though, is something I did quite like. And this is a directional choice that you don't often see because it's not something you'll often really need to use, but it's something that you should, I think, when the narrator demands it, which is that in episode 6, we actually outright skip the OP.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there. There have been examples of this in other anime, one of which was, and I've mentioned this to you numerous times, Persona 4, the anime. Not the golden one. We don't talk about that. Spoilers for Persona 4, but if you've not played Persona 4, why are you listening to this podcast? Go play it.
It's been 10 years. Come on.
No. Yeah, that's true. So, of course, in Persona 4, there are a couple of major events that happen, one of which, of course, is that after Nanako is rescued from the Heaven Dungeon, she dies in hospital. Now, in the anime, the way that the anime is structured is her dying is the end of that particular episode. I don't remember the episode number, I'm afraid, so just take my word for it. And then the following episode, there is no OP. It is a title card, and that's it. And that is, I think, a really sensible choice to follow through from the mood of the previous one. And then it happens later. So in Magatsu Inaba, which is, of course, the endgame dungeon where the final boss awaits, Yu faces off against Adachi at the end of the episode, and it looks like they're about to start fighting, and then it cuts to credits, because that's when the episode ends. Fair enough. Next episode, again, no OP. We get a title card with Adachi speaking over it, and then it cuts immediately to the fight getting started. Again, a great example of we don't need the OP here because it's going to stall and deflate the momentum from the previous episode. People are going to be waiting for this episode to come out next week, and we want to get them right into it. We want them to be immediately engaged with the fight. So, where appropriate, the decision to drop the OP, I think, is a really nice narrative flourish. And not to mention, it's just in terms of budget and expenses, not a cheap thing to do because, of course, your OP is 1 minute 30 of your average 24-minute episode that you can just slot in for free every week. You don't have to worry about animating anything new to cover that particular time. I can't, again, speak for the specifics of how much it costs to, create something brand new in place of that, how much it would set you back, but it's not a non-zero figure.
Yeah, and there are a couple moments where there's very, very little going on motion-wise, and the camera kind of stops for a while on a specific shot, and you feel it linger longer than it should. And there are a couple still frames during the fight at one point, or at least if they're not outright still frames, then they're mostly still. And so I feel like you felt it there. But I think on balance, I agree with you that in terms of the tone that we're trying to set here, it makes sense. And it's worth it to do.
Exactly. So this is the morning after the night before. This is the day of the big battle that they've been leading up to. The one in which they will finally conquer Metroid Prime. Sorry. No, I'm
Smash
sorry.
Brothers Melee.
I want there to be fan art of, the 4 Franks is playing on giant controllers plugged into the giant GameCube Klaxosaur.
I'm sad it's not the burnt orange color that was so popular. It's just black. How boring.
It looks like it's out of Tron Legacy, so...
They all have that color scheme, so...
Yeah, the blue-black. It's the colour palette I use for Kai and Guilty Gear, so there's that as well. But anyway...
Klaxosaur Kai.
Indeed.
Kai Klaxe.
I'm not drunk enough for this. Let me go grab some beer. Give me some alcohol! Okay, no. I'm not going to drink alcohol just yet. I'm going to drink it later when I, weep into my pillow over this episode. But anyway, so let us talk about fan service. Oh boy, my favourite topic of all time, fan service. I mean, it's right up there along with nuclear disarmament. That's how much I like talking about it.
This is the sound of me getting out of your way. All right.
It has to be said that if you want to continue a grim mood of foreboding, that this could be, the point at which all our characters are murdered, or, well, not murdered, killed in action. Do we really have to have a scene in which the girls are discussing mundane, this is the battle stuff over them getting changed in their underwear? Is that, strictly speaking, necessary? I mean, we don't see it for the guys, so I know exactly why it's there. And it sure as shit to me does not seem to be there for anything that gels with the narrative or the mood that was built up in episode 5. So I'm skeptical.
Let me just pose a hypothetical to you. But this is me not disagreeing with you in principle, but just playing devil's advocate for a moment. So, as you know, the beginning of the episode, let's take that as a given, that the Klaxosaurs are on their way. They're approaching. And it's time to go, it's time to battle. And what we want to do narratively is depict the characters having those moments of sort of talking out their feelings. Maybe there's some tension, some doubt. I'm not sure what other activity, realistically speaking, they could be doing.
Having breakfast?
But they don't have time. Aren't they rushing out to get in the mechs?
They don't seem in any hurry. And then again, you could just rewrite the script to give them time to at least have something to eat before they go.
No. Yeah, anything is possible with the rewriting. But that I was just gonna say, if you're gonna go with that beginning, and then I guess you're right that there's not a sense of urgency to get on the battlefield, but they do appear to be on schedule as far as getting into the briefing room and planning out a strategy.
Yeah.
And it's one of the only places I think they could have a quiet moment to talk. Now, all that notwithstanding, we all know one of, if not the primary reasons that scene is there is for the cheesecake.
Yep. Cheesecake. Right before a battle in which they could all die. Great. I love my tonal distance. I fucking love it. I love it when I'm meant to be going into, a fight which has been so massively led up to. In fact, all of this, honestly, a little bit feels disingenuous to the work that the people put into episode 5. I'm so fucking tired of this shit. I really am. And I'm not even got to the most awful part of this episode as far as the fan service goes, which I'm really saving up my vitriol for later.
But the character work itself, I think, is good. That is in that scene, the work in that scene, and in I think a lot of scenes in the show. I think this episode rather was didn't reach the dizzying heights of episode 5.
No,
But apart from that, it's as good as the show has been in terms of the characters getting to strut their stuff, have moments, get development, have screen time, and feel significant.
I half agree and half don't, and I'll get to specific moments in a bit. But look, let me just lay it out here for you folks, right? I've had a very shifting opinion on fan service over the years. When I started watching anime, I flat out hated it. I found it the most distracting thing ever because it played to the stereotype of anime being an immature medium that is just for children. And the more I watched, my viewpoint on that did not particularly weaken, but rather I refined it a little bit. I felt that unnecessary fan service betrays the work. It betrays the intent of the writers and the creators of the show that, oh, the material we've got is interesting, so here, have some ass or some tits to look at. That's what the opinion I held. Now, that being said, that's changed over time. If there is something interesting going on, then I can, generally speaking, ignore unnecessary fan service because I've got something else I can point to. I can literally go, look, I'm interested in this, not this. But the dialogue that was happening in this scene, for one, I don't see how it couldn't have been done in a different setting. And two, I don't think it was just mostly just posturing. There wasn't any real existential dread. It didn't come across to me or emotionally engage me enough to truly take me away from noticing what was put in front of me, which was ass and boobs. I
think it would have, if the dialogue that wasn't in there and the interactions in that scene were taken out, I think the episode would be diminished. That moment of it would be diminished.
Oh, yeah. I'm not advocating for its removal. I'm advocating for its transplantation to something else.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm advocating for. And that's the beauty of being a writer, in that you can actually make this stuff work in a different setting.
Yeah, I guess it just would have felt differently. I apologize for interrupting you. I just, thinking about them having breakfast, I know we're getting really in the weeds on this one scene, but it would have just had a sort of sense of leisure about it that I feel would have just felt different.
It kind of feels leisurely as is at the moment, though.
Really? Okay, so I guess it hit me a little differently as a part of the, sound the alarms, the master controller people are looking all grim-faced and we need to prepare, and then cut to that as part of that momentum. It felt right. Again, it felt right, but it also felt okay, yeah, this is here for this reason. Because anime is a commodity that needs to sell character products.
Well, in that case, I would again make the argument that maybe Frank should just go all in on that rather than trying to be two things at once that can't coexist.
I think this is a dilemma that all anime face.
Maybe it needs to actually answer that dilemma once and for all then. I don't know. I'm just... Anyway, right. I'll make one final point, which is to say that as you alluded to earlier... Yes, in fact, no, this was off cast actually, but there is a scene in which Ichigo is having a bath, she's pouring water over herself, she's butt fucking naked, and she's slapping her face. I'm okay with that. I'm alright with that because it is her being vulnerable, it's her also working herself up to what's coming. Mm-hmm. It's completely dialogue free. In theory, you could cut it, but I appreciate its presence for that reason other than just, well, she's naked,
Yeah.
But this later bit did not gel as much with me.
Right. And you have a fair point here that we don't really get to see Hiro or Goro in the same kind of two dudes taking a shower. You know what I mean? We're presented their vulnerability in a different way.
In the bedroom when they're talking to each other.
Yeah. Fully clothed, or Hiro is curled up in the fetal position, with his aching ailment in the chest or whatever. But it's just a different thing than it's less. There's less sort of sexualization for sure.
I wonder why that is.
Oh, I think yes.
You get my point. I'm just being bitter and sarcastic about it. Okay, moving swiftly on from that. So everyone gets outside. Gets ready for the oncoming onslaught of the Klaxosaurs. And we get to see Group 26's, the Cookie Cutter Kids, Franxx for the first time. And
Cookie Cutter Kids.
Yeah, they are. I don't know any of their names.
Their robots are so bland as well.
Exactly. They are
bland. McFucking bland. just Master Chief bots. Just looking shitty. They have cool harpoon weapons that I like very much.
They do. And one of the bits of dialogue that we did get with the guys before they headed out is that Zorome is all like, we can't let them show us up. We've got to be better than them. And I'm like, oh my god, you really set yourself up for failure here. I mean, I appreciate your enthusiasm, Zorome, but just look at your track record here. You are currently 0 for 2.
Yeah, 0 for infinity.
Yeah, you've not done very well so far. So, but then again, as I've mentioned, that's the whole point of the build-up in the previous episode. We're meant to be afraid for these characters because this show is supposedly meant to be taken seriously and meant to be, you know, a little bit gritty. I'm not talking full gritty here. It doesn't need to be like, you know, all war is hell.
Full gritty.
It doesn't need to be, you know, Spec Ops The Line as a mecha show.
Votoms. That's what you're looking for if you want that, by the way.
I'll politely decline. I'm currently getting a bit burned out on mecha. No, I kid. I'll never.
It is the polar opposite of this show, by the way. It's for so many reasons, but we'll talk about that off air.
Are they all nuns and priests? Is that why? Do they?
They might as well be.
do they break bread to turn the robots on?
I can't think of anything clever to say, but no.
Okay. So the battle does eventually begin.
Oh wait, can I?
Sorry,
there's just a couple. There's a couple more scenes or things I wanted to point out before the battle gets started.
Sure.
Firstly, I think that, or let me ask you, 02's hood, like when you're
shit!
It looks like a cobra. When she's walking and you see the back of her and you see that the hood with the two circles, I know all the ladies' hoods look like that, but first I think maybe the color palette on 02's suit, the Shah Aznable red suit, of course, which means she's three times as good as any other palette. It just made me think of Cobra. I did
not even recognise that. But you're right. And I've also just realised I've completely skipped over something I did want to bring up regarding Ichigo, which is...
her dialogue with Hiro in the hall, right?
Oh, yes.
/ Goro pushing them together.
Okay.
I really love this scene, by the way.
I liked it, but I just thought that this is... Okay, so to give you context, folks. So Ichigo and Goro are having a brief conversation in which he's like, you know, are you ready for this, etc., etc., and she's all like, putting on a brave face, saying she's up for it. But she's worried about Hiro, because of course she is. Goro has still not told her. And when we get to what happens at the end of this episode, I'm going to be so mad. Like, okay, so Goro doesn't tell her, of course, about what's happened. But she still has maybe a hint, perhaps, that something's not right. Or she's just genuinely concerned because, let's be honest, she loves him. I don't think that's beyond doubt at this point.
No, yes, absolutely she does.
And I'm not talking even a familial sense. I am literally talking romantic, nascent teenage love kind of thing.
But she does not want to admit that to herself. That's for sure.
Well, I can't blame her. She could do so much better than that useless fucking waste of time. But anyway, so Goro, by the way, spots Hiro coming down the corridor and pushes Ichigo towards Hiro to go speak to him and then teleports away. Because when we cut back, like, this whole scene is like close-ups of both characters. So we're looking down one direction of the corridor and one of the other. And the moment it cuts back to Ichigo, there's no sign of Goro in the background whatsoever. He has literally vanished into the mist.
He's behind her, and then at one point she looks up and sees him waving at her over Hiro's shoulder or something as he's walking away, and I'm just like, did you do a dishonored blink to get to the other end of the hallway?
Yeah. He's a jumper, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversation goes something like this. Ichigo, she doesn't really know what to say. She's kind of been pushed into this situation without being ready for it. So she fumbles things in the same manner that you would ask someone about the weather. You know, how are you feeling about this, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And Hiro says, it's okay, Ichigo. I know that being a leader must be tough for you, but I believe you can do it. And Ichigo says, I reckon I can. I think I can do it. And then she
I'll be counting on you too, man. bro dude, buddy, pal.
She says none of those things, because what she wants to say, and what she nearly does, says, Hero, I've always...
loved you.
And she instead says, I've always thought of you as a sibling. Yes, that's right, thought of you as a sibling, yes. And Hero, because... if ever I need my cavity loft insulation replacing, I will use him because he is a dense motherfucker. Honestly.
He is very, very clueless about this.
He replies back, fully enough, given how he's treated Ichigo in the past, this is actually character for him. Ugh. He replies back, it's okay, I think of you like that as well. And Ichigo's face is...
And so does Goro. That was my favorite bit of that.
Oh, wow.
We're all like brothers and sisters together.
Yeah, you're not hooking up with me, and you sure as shit ain't hooking up with him. You're stuck with Zorome, Mitsuru, and the kid who eats too much. Congratulations, that's a chocolate box of choice there, Ichigo. Fucking A.
There's always Papa.
No. So, Ichigo's face at this point looks like, well, if you've ever taken a piece of A4 paper and scrunched it in your hands, and then looks at it afterwards, it looks like that.
Yeah, she's hurting. She's hurting in the hall. But then she does really well, right? Like, she takes it and turns it into determination.
Well, I'm going to get my determination going right now to talk about what is, in my opinion, the absolute nadir moment of this entire show so far. So... let's just put it this way. You remember how earlier in this very same episode I was annoyed at the presence of the fan service with regards to the girls in the showers. Now, as I said before, the dialogue's there. I don't think it was all that poppy or emotive to me, but as you've rightly asserted, Doc, and I do agree with, if you are going to replace that scene, you need to keep that dialogue in. You need to at least have some sort of pre-battle banter to like humanize them a little bit, to remind you that they do have regular feelings going on. Mm-hmm. Maybe the dialogue could be spiced up a little bit. I don't know. I'm projecting here, but I would certainly keep some sort of pre-fight conversation between the girls in. Absolutely. However, what happens here, and I'm going to just give you a play-by-play of this, is after that scene, Ichigo gets on board her Franxx Delphinium, and the shot is literally of her arse. It is just of her arse. There is no dialogue over this. It is just a hard cut to a shot of her arse in full close-up, and then a cut away to the proper cockpit, and then Goro starts speaking. Now, first point. That entire shot is unneeded fan service, and it is unneeded fan service in much the same way as it was previously, with the shower scene. But the thing is, this is worse just because there's no dialogue in it. As an editor, I could do a fan edit of this episode in which I could cut that shot out entirely. And there's no loss of continuity from one scene to another because you still get the shot going into the cockpit. It establishes a change of location regardless. There's no dialogue over it. It is solely there for fan service.
Akira Amemiya will be mad at you because he
storyboarded
the ass, so you have to put it in there.
I am mad at him for doing this because there's no in-universe reason. It's not from Goro's perspective. We don't get like an inner monologue from him saying like, "Oh God, why am I looking at this?" There is not a.
If we did, he should be slapped. If he thought that,
I agree, but I would at least have something I can point to, anything.
Yeah.
But well, in fact, I'll just pose the question to you, Doc, and maybe this might be a bit unfair, but can you think of a reason that shot is there other than simply as context-free fan service?
Oh no. It does not rile me up in the way that it does you, simply because of the duration of it is so short, and then the rest of it's not like the episode is awash in it. We get a ton of robot fighting, and we get a ton of, I think, really worthwhile moments with Ichigo throughout the episode, including like a moment later in the next camera shot. So it does not upset me because of that. It certainly doesn't upset me the way episode fucking 2 did. That was an abomination. But no, like it did not need to be there. It's absolutely just like, it's fluff. It's part of the selling point of the shows, and unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you take it, is this sort of fluff.
I have to say, I do also disagree with your assessment that the Ichigo has good moments. I think that in the vast majority of this episode, she just exists to get dumped on, much as she has done in the entirety of the show. I cannot think of a single moment in which she succeeds at something that she wants to accomplish, with the possible exception of the closing moment, which we'll get to, but that her rallying the rest of them to do that moment was spurred on by Goro.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like... a lot of the characters fail in this episode. One in particular succeeds pretty wildly by the end. He suffered for it.
He succeeds in a way that I could not.
But like a few of the characters do fail, and yeah, Ichigo fails a lot. But I think the way I took it was not her getting needlessly dunked on. It was more like it was things I was interested to see. It was her feelings, her true feelings. It was not her being humiliated, or it wasn't her getting her face rubbed in the dirt necessarily. It was her reacting a very human way and needing support, and then also giving support. I think Delphinium kicked a ton of ass this episode.
I have to credit her, at least. Yeah, I agree. Like, when Delphinium is easily the most effective of the original 4 Franxx, it's kind of silly, actually, to be quite honest, how bad the others are at fighting.
God, they're bad. They're really bad.
And they have self-awareness about that. That's
Can we
fine.
start a band called Delphinium and the 4 Franxx?
Yes, I will play the banjo.
I will play the guitar.
Nice. Good shout. Okay, I'll get more into stuff with Ichigo later. But
okay.
In fact, no, I'll just say right now that I think in some ways, and I sent you a meme gif of this, or a meme image of this, she is turning into the Rem of this show. She is, yeah.
I like Rem way a lot.
Well, I like Rem I like Ichigo more than most of the other characters, with the exception of 02, whose own star has kind of faded a little bit in my mind. Like, I don't know, like, I've seen her acts now, and I'm just kind of like, okay, now what? And, well, the show shrugs at me.
Oh, really? See, I thought this episode was some interesting things from her we hadn't seen before.
Might have been nice if she said it herself rather than happening in a fever dream, but we'll get to it. Okay, so, the battle. The battle gets started, and the plan, as we mentioned last time, is that the 26 Cookie Cutter kids, they will fold the front line, and the rest of the Franxx, apart from Strelizia, will be in the rear, defending the protecting tunnel, and Strelizia will be defending the opposite side of the plantation. Except not, because for some reason Strelizia is just on the bridge looking over the battle. I don't know.
They're on standby.
That's a mild continuity error that I don't really care about, to be quite honest. I just thought I'd mention it. So the battle begins, and as much as I like the animation of this battle, there's a problem with it. And it's a problem that I mentioned when we discussed Gunbuster of all things, which is that there's supposedly 150 Klaxosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. There's supposedly 150 Klaxosaurs coming at these guys. And they're very polite Klaxosaurs because they come in single file.
They do. All right, let's go in groups of 5. We'll be outnumbered every time, but fuck it. This is our way.
Now serving number 231. Please bring your ticket forward to the Franxx to be destroyed. Thank you.
It is a little, yeah. I was I agree. What we got sort of in a vacuum was good, but yes, given the context of what this battle was meant to be, like, yeah, I was expecting them to just be overrun. Like, I could not believe the desperate straits they were in, having a handful of Franxx, outnumbered like 100-1 or more, and fucking, I just seemed like they could handle it with relative ease, except for the big GameCube bad. Yeah.
There's a number of things about this. First off, I like the fact that we're getting a contrast between the Cookie Code kids and how effective they are against our heroes, Plantation 13's group. But in context, it makes no sense. They spend an odd amount of time killing each Klaxosaur with a group maneuver that against 150 of them in the swarm. And bear in mind, my level of tactics here involves basic StarCraft play and, knowing how to tech up to mammoth tanks in Command and Conquer. But I think that if they did that, they wouldn't have killed maybe even 10 of them before they got to the wall. It's a slow process, and it looks good, but it just doesn't make sense in context of what's going on. And the second thing I'll mention in relation to this is when we did Diebuster, I discussed specifically Diebuster, how Diebuster, in my opinion, and I know there are going to be some dissenters, shouts to Alex, who very rightly did point out an alternative interpretation of Gunbuster's ending, which I hadn't realised, that made the incomprehensible telling, not showing nature of it more clear, although I'm not going to give Franxx the same benefit of the doubt as he did. But the point being is that in Gunbuster, they literally had to put on screen text saying X amount killed, the Gunbuster machines are still here, because they were numbering in the quadrillions. And that was, in my opinion, the ambition of the text overrunning the ability of the animators to convey that. Because how do you convey quadrillions of things on a screen in a way that's comprehensible to your average audience person? Audience goer? You can't. And in Diebuster, they kept it down to a single entity that they scaled against an object that everyone's familiar with, the Earth. So you can think to yourself, Jesus, that's a big fucking thing. That's pretty bad. And that was a much more comprehensible end battle. So what I don't understand about the way this battle is formed is why have there be so many Klaxosaurs in the first place if you can't ultimately then deliver on that vision of animating them all in a big brawl? Why not just have it just be the GameCube Klaxosaur as a single entity? That is still threatening.
Yeah, I agree. I think that clearly the creative subscribed to the Matthew Matosis school of Dark Souls criticism. By this I mean battles should be one-on-one. No engaging of multiples. That's not fair. You fight them one at a time because that's fair to the players.
Yeah.
This is a silly reference that probably few people get, so I apologize for wasting your time. But yeah, no, this is my way of saying I agree that I think it did not deliver on that promise. Having said that, I genuinely do think that the fighting we do get is slickly done.
Yes.
Really good moments, solid animation. Like you said, the some of the poor pilots of our junior class here, Plantation 13, like, are tripping over themselves, and Ichigo has to bail them out. And I'm very glad that she gets to do that. She gets to kill some Klaxosaurs. That's really nice to see.
Yeah.
And
she
it
does
looks
well.
Good. The 26 kids, that sounds weird to say. The Plantation 26 pilots.
No, I've got a new name. They are the Cabbage Patch Kids. There you go. Job done.
Okay. The Cabbage Patch Kids, as we said, do these group maneuvers that are weird given the stated circumstances, but just on their own look cool. And it's nice to see coordinated squad combat that is coherent and is successful and tactical in in more robot shows than not. You don't get a lot of that.
No.
You get robots that fuck up and aren't strong enough, and then a big super prototype amazing bot that comes in and destroys everything, lays waste to all with a single punch, which I'm a fan of.
Gundam Wing.
But variety is a good thing. Please do not invoke the Gundam Wing on this podcast ever again. Thank you.
I will try not to, if at all possible.
Hero!
I mean, Franxx would benefit from a scene in which someone shoots someone as they fall out of an airplane after they've had the one legitimately 10 out of 10 moment from Gundam Wing.
I almost spit my drink everywhere. What did you do?
You nearly did that to me last episode, Doc, so this
Holy
is my revenge.
shit.
What a glorious moment.
That's one of the better moments ever. In
Just
in my life. Seeing that.
It's so amazing. Okay, but we can't talk about that, sadly. We can't.
YouTube Lady Un kills General Septim.
Yes.
It's incredible.
And try not to get any Oblivion LPs while you're at it. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Anyway, So,
Hey.
while this battle is going on, of course, and our heroes are not doing so hot versus the Cookie Cutter Cabbage Patch Kids, who are doing all right, inexplicably, because I assume a lot of the Klaxosaurs just said, sod it, let's go to White Castle.
What if they just ran past the plantation?
Yeah, they were going elsewhere.
Oh, we miscalculated. Sorry, false alarm. Only downgrade this to a code yellow.
They're going to Neo Disneyland.
the Tron ride. They're due to be ushers in the line.
No, it's the amusement park from near Osmasa.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay, so while this is all happening, Strelizia is, of course, stationed on top of the connecting bridge, and 02 is watching from the little, gantry outside the cockpit, while Hero's inside. His techno cancer is killing him.
Techno cancer. That's a very good name for that. Yeah, he's doubled over.
Oh, wait until I get to the point where I properly have to discuss the techno cancer. I think I never thought I'd say in my life, but the point being is that I am this fucking plot point. But we'll get to it. It's not here yet. I've got to hold myself. I've got to restrain my annoyance at this. All right. So he's, of course, he's struggling to breathe. He's in a pretty bad shape, and 02 says it hurts, doesn't it, etc., etc. And they have a brief discussion in which Hero asks her, why do you fight the Klaxosaurs? And on one level, I think that's a silly question, because the answer is, well, she's a soldier fighting in a war. She's doing as she's ordered to. But on the other hand, 02 is a free enough spirit that if she didn't want to fight the Klaxosaurs, I imagine no one could make her do it.
And he sees the glee with which she relishes dispatching them.
Yes.
And I think he's asking about that. So he's thinking that there's something extra that makes that feeling manifest. He's like, what's that?
Yeah. She says maybe it's because I'm a monster, and I'm dissatisfied with this explanation, but I'm okay with being dissatisfied because I think that's the intent. Because the Klaxosaurs that we've seen thus far are not meant to be anything we can sympathise with. They're not even on the level of the fucking bugs from Starship Troopers. Because they existed in a satire in which the world was all built around not being empathetic or open to peaceful solutions. But in this case, the Klaxosaurs are literally creeps in a multiplayer game. They are, monsters to be hunted, Monster Hunter World style. That is it. There is nothing more to them that we know about at this point, where they come from or anything, and that is a mild annoyance of mine, but that's a different matter for a different time. So 02's explanation is a parry, basically. She parries the question. She sends it batting away. So, whatever.
What did you make of Hero's answer?
Because he has... What, because he... Right, okay. I've complained before about the fact we don't see any people other than the kids and the adults that we know of, the military staff. Now, funnily enough, Hero's answer, similar to 02's, should be very dissatisfying because I've not fucking seen a single average Joe in this entire show. I don't know what, John White Collar does for a day living in here. Does he go to an office job in the plantation? Does he have water cooler conversations with his fellow colleagues about, the fact there are Klaxosaurs outside the city and how well the local football team is doing?
It seems about as populated as the city in Monogatari.
It seems about as populated as, again, near Osmasa, funnily enough. Now, this is again the thing about doing a sequential, week-on-week analysis. So I'm going to put out two possibilities. Either we're not going to get shown any adults because the show doesn't properly consider or take the time to do that and is lesser for it, or B, because there simply aren't any. What a twist that would be if it turned out there literally just aren't any adults anywhere.
That would be kind of rad.
I don't know what that would ultimately be in service of at this point, but we will find out. If it does end up being the latter rather than the former, though, I'm just going to be massively disappointed because we need the human element. We want to care about our main characters. We want to care about the wider world and what they're fighting for.
Well, we did see. Sorry to cut you. This just occurred to me in my brain. The only time we've ever seen a large group of people was their graduation ceremonies.
Could have just been the military, though.
It could have just been a bunch of kids. I mean, I don't recall apart from the Star Chamber, golden masked folk.
Yeah. I again just have to keep thinking back to stuff like Frontier and even Gunbuster and Diebuster that we got to see the regular Joes.
Yeah. It helps for sure.
and it helps sell the threat. But well, we've got a giant GameCube with horns coming towards our city. I think this threat is already, making a mockery of itself as it is anyway. So,
well, can I say? Well, here's what I thought of Hero's answer. I thought it was the state reply. Like it was it was very much what you learn in church, what you learn in school. Hand over heart, this is what we pledge, gonna protect Papa, gonna protect the plantation. This is what we are meant to do. We are born to do it. We have no other purpose. And 02 is just like,
meh.
That's lame. Like, you don't have a reason of your own. You've been given this reason, and you've clung to it, and you may live by it, and it may get you through and push you onward, but you don't have your own reason. And I think she's a little disappointed, and I liked that.
I agree with her assessment. There is a lame excuse for it. But we already, of course, know what Hero's real reason for wanting to do this is because, well, he's inadequate without doing so. So, to the point where he will do it even if it is killing him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and he's, this is why we exist. Part of what he tells 02, and yeah, it's but that... You know what? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Continue. Please continue.
Okay, so at this point, Strelizia, that is 02, and Hero decide, okay, our friends are in a mild spot of bother, and, well, let's go help them. Why not? So they do. This, by the way, does not actually cause any of the adults to, protest at this, that they're going off plan here.
Nope.
And, again, this is me looking back at what happened in episode 5 and realizing that the setup is unraveling itself. I mean, okay, I already mentioned the mild continuity errors, that Strelizia is not guarding the rear, but the rear never gets attacked in this episode after they go off position, so what was the point of that setup?
Shrug.
Beats me. Actually, something else I'll mention now, because there isn't really another time that is worth mentioning it. Do you recall how in the previous episode the Mitsuru was a shaking mess?
Yeah, they don't give us any of that this time. But that's only one episode. That's he doesn't really get any screen time apart from a shot of his face while he's in the robot. So I will forgive them, for a bit on that, because I feel like maybe they thought there are different things they need to accomplish this episode. They
could have at least hinted at it somehow. I mean, I'm not expecting it to be... there would have been a lot to cram in if they had to do with all of this at simultaneously.
What's Mitsuru up to this week? I still popping pills.
Yeah. I would be surprised if he started vaping in his cockpit, to be quite honest.
Oh, God. Let me show me your rig, Mitsuru.
Oh, my God.
Your coils. What kind of coils you got heating the fit? No, okay, I'll stop.
I think to myself, though, when it comes to this thing about Mitsuru, that was set up in the previous episode in the run-up to this. So, okay, again, we're doing a week-on-week analysis, and maybe this will come back later, but it's to the point where it matters so little for this episode that if it had never happened in the previous one, I never would have known. There's not even a mild hint of it. There's not even a moment where, he lingers or staggers and is and then, is part of it. I'm so sorry, I've forgotten her name again.
Ikuno.
There's not even a point where, that happens and Ikuno's are you okay? And he just immediately gets back up. I'm not asking that it be a major plot point, but just something that they reference briefly, and they don't even do that.
I think they'll get back to it. I hope.
I just feel, in some ways, a lot of what happens in episode 6 feels like them just wasting everything that was brought up before. And we've not even got to the most egregious bit yet. The big fucking cancerous elephant in the room, which really, really annoyed me. But again, why have that scene in Mitsuru if we're not even going to mention it in this bit? I don't know. You could be right. I hope you're right that it does come back later and is proper development. But I'm also skeptical of that for a different reason, which we'll get to.
Okay. Yeah, I just think the goals of this one were largely that's always the goal. And the battle, right? The fighting. And that was, I think the majority of the episode was the fight, which I was cool with because last episode was none of the fighting and all the character build up and tension. And whether or not the fighting actually paid off all that tension, I think you could make a fair argument that it didn't. But that's why I think I'm okay this time with them not dwelling on Mitsuru's condition at the minute, because he's never, I just don't know about, like, you know, taking the focus away from the other things to give him a minute here. But like you said, I mean, it wouldn't have taken much, but also, like, I don't know that they need to do it every single episode.
Not necessarily, but when it is part of an entire episode that is all build-up, I took everything that happened in episode 5 to be relevant to what was coming, and most of it, or a lot of it, is not.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't... I don't recall them sort of fucking up in the battle in particularly egregious way.
No.
Which would have made sense, I feel.
That's why, again, if Mitsuru had just stumbled for a bit because he's like, you know, his condition kicks in just briefly.
Zorome was busy tackling Delphinium.
Aye. Okay, so back to the battle. So the smaller Klaxosaurs, all 12 of them from what I saw, not 150.
I just love it when they're like, how many have we killed so far? 3. Great.
Fantastic.
Great. That's 0.not 4%. Keep it up.
Nice, new high score there for them. They do better than last time when they, like, you know, got ambushed by facehugger Klaxosaurs and just got, you know, bodied, to use a fighting game term.
Oh,
okay,
Lord.
So the Cookie Cutter Kids. Now, the order has been given up at this point, not to, or at least until now, to not engage the GameCube Klaxosaur, to leave it alone. Fine, fair enough. Mop up the stragglers so they don't distract you. Go for the big fish afterwards. Now, what happens then is that the Cookie Cutter Kids decide that they'll wrap the Klaxosaur in their lances and electrify it, much as they did with the smaller ones. And this, as you would probably expect, does not work. And I'm actually okay with this because it's actually a symbol, or rather a example of how groupthink like that, of rigid thinking, because again, they're all the same person basically, just with mild differences. They're all passing the same model Franxx, of how that is ineffective in certain situations. I mean, you can make the argument, I'm speaking as someone who knows jack shit about military tactics and design here, but I think that there is a very good reason why you have different kinds of, you know, vehicles and tanks and such in modern military, in real life military, because they serve different functions for different encounters and different operations.
Darling in the tanks.
I would be okay with that. I would entirely be alright with that.
Look, everyone knows you don't use the same tactics on the big bad that you use on the minions. Come on. It's never going to work. Never going to work in a million years.
No. So it stops the Klaxosaur for a moment, but then it turns out the Klaxosaur is not actually a GameCube, but instead is actually a Decepticon.
Yes! Devastator!
Because it turns into a giant bipedal monster that, again, gave me near flashbacks. Like, there's a boss fight with a kaiju robot in that.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers. And there's a theme that goes with that, and that immediately started playing in my head. I mean, you could make an AMV out of that, I would say.
There's a cool as fuck, like, well, metal as fuck, like, design on that robot. Like, the blue sort of luminescent part of it is...
The face.
Like a skull or something, right?
Yeah, the face. It looks like a lava monster. Like, it's not too bad, although the horns are still a bit silly, but it's better than the GameCube. Yes. In fact, that actually makes me think that maybe that's the idea behind this Klaxosaur, that it was a boxed-up toy.
Yeah.
Episode 6 of Darling In The Franxx is the unboxing video. There you go, folks.
Oh my god.
Now I'm suddenly okay with it. So, okay, the Klaxosaur now is 25 stories tall, and the smaller, the Franxx, the Cookie Cutter Kid Franxx, they try to again grapple it with their lances, and it just tosses them aside like they're nothing. One of them, with some guy inside whose name I don't know.
Some guy. Some guy, comma, some.
Yeah. His Franxx is knocked to the ground, and the Klaxosaur is about to step on him, and he tries to pull away, and his Franxx doesn't respond. Now, it's been established previously, and this is a very minor nitpick here, but this is just silly to me. It's been established previously that Franxxes can be disabled if one or both of their pilots are knocked out. So when this happened and the little warning came up, I thought, oh, his co-pilot has been knocked out. No, it just turns out they're out of fuel. What? What the fuck?
Wait a minute. I somehow missed this. I have no recollection of this part.
He literally said, we're out of fuel now of all times. And I'm like, what?
He can't get it up. Someone give him a pill. Get a toy. Just keep it going.
The mecha Viagra, give him one of
Yes.
those. But, okay, I get what they're trying to do here, in that they're trying to have him, get crushed. And I thought he was a goner, because I didn't have any of those kids having any life expectancy in this episode. They were red shirts. But the thing is, you've established a plot point previously, or a world-building point, that Franxx can be disabled by their pilot being out. So rather than having a really stupid explanation where they just ran out of fuel after 5 minutes or whatever of combat, I mean, they're not the robots from Ava with, long cables going into a giant battery here. So why not use the existing thing you've established that makes more sense? It's minor, so whatever, I just thought I'd point out. But what then surprised me was he doesn't actually die because Zorome saves him. Zorome, makes the save before he gets stood on.
Attaboy. Attaboy, yapping dog. Do your thing. I could just see him, next episode with a smug grin on his face, walking, holding his right shoulder, and then kind of spinning his right arm in a circle. Yep, I got this.
Wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. So, okay. It now falls to Plantation 13's defenders, our unlucky motley crew of heroes.
Banana peel slipping robot.
Yes. They're gonna fight. They're gonna fight this thing. And Ichigo half comes up with a plan, but then Goro explains the rest of it for her, which did annoy me a little bit. So I'm like, just let her talk. Goro is seizing the reins a bit too much for my taste in a lot of this episode. Ichigo clearly has an idea, but he starts mansplaining for her.
Goro.
That's literally what it is. And Ichigo's plan, which I'll credit to her because she came up for it before fucking Goro had to, intervene, is, alright, we're going to kneecap this motherfucker, and then Strelizia's going to deliver the blow with the lance. Because Strelizia's weapon is the only one that can penetrate that deeply into the Klaxosaur. Wink, wink.
Hey! The biggest phallic symbol of them all.
Yeah. To get the core for massive damage. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But I then started having a creeping thought come into my head, which only got more prominent later on, which is that I've said before that Strelizia is overpowered, but it starts to get a bit silly that if they can make Strelizia that strong, why are all the other Franxxes not similarly good?
Well, I think it's to do with the pilots even more than the robot.
They literally said, though, that Strelizia's weapon was the only one, and Strelizia bodies the fuck out of all the other smaller Klaxosaurs.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think... Right, yes, I think it is, part, the weapon, but also, if the pilots holding that weapon were not as skilled, it wouldn't matter.
I suppose, but...
This is what I think... This is an anime issue. Anime is extremely self-referential, and there are things that happen that if you are steeped in it, then you will pick up on. But if you are not, then the symbolism is not really conveyed to you maybe as effectively. I mean, I think we've seen how awesome a pilot 02 is, but I'm telling you, I mentioned this before, the fact that she is in a red suit, a pilot in a red suit, matters, because that is a direct reference to Shah Aznable, who is in the Gundam universe, the Universal Century timeline, probably the best pilot who ever lived. Certainly the most legendary. And, he was called the Red Comet, and people had rumors about him being 3 times as fast and as strong as any human that could pilot, and he's a legendary new type.
I would agree with you about 02 being the best pilot, but again, it takes 2 to tango in a Franxx, and as we find out later, when 02's on her own, well...
Yeah, well, and that's, and Hero is also no slouch, right, as we find out later, he's a teen, and so this is a nice little touch I liked about the show, right, that even when the Plantation 13 folks kind of fuck up and they're tripping over each other, the Plantation 26 leader, the leader of the Cabbage Patch Kids, recognizes how far along they are for kids their age. Even when they're bumbling in combat, he's like, man, they got another teen code over there in that squad, giving a nod to this is a group that to the untrained eye may look uncoordinated, but man, they have a lot of potential. They do.
I won't deny that as definitely a good point, but I'm going to come back to Strelizia being overpowered later.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, look, yes, this is. I don't want to disagree with your point. Like the pilots, the robot, like all that stuff. Yes, it is. The whole situation is totally OP, and it's a fail-safe, save the day thing. Although they kind of trick you a little bit in this episode with it. They pull the rug out for a minute.
Oh, they certainly pulled the rug out from under me with what happens later, but I'm thinking of a different thing than what you are, and it's one of those things. It's almost as egregious as the fucking dog from Elfen Lied. That's how angry it got me. But we'll get to it. We're going there soon, folks. So the killing blow is struck on the Klaxosaur, but no. And after landing the blow, Hero is now the techno cancer is actually spread up to his face. You see it like also throbbing under his arm.
Oh, just the word throbbing. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, ooh.
Plenty of things were throbbing in this episode, like my temple. My temple was throbbing as I watched
Guilty!
Wah wah. So, the Klaxosaur does not take kindly to this tummy rub that it gets from Strelizia and flicks it away.
Transforms again into this piston arm.
This giant battering ram that's rocket powered.
Fucking A. It's like it's a big O punch.
It really was. I didn't know how to feel about it, but thinking on it, I thought, you know what? Fine by me. This Klaxosaur at least has a sense of style. I'm okay with that. So it punts Strelizia away and then hits it again with its now like gigantic, comically sized battering ram. And then when it punches Strelizia or batters it into the plantation bridge, that's it for Hero. He taps out. He's done.
Yeah, they get knocked the fuck out because you think, okay, they've put the lance in, but no, the robot just gets punched, just fucking wailed on into a building.
Yes, it does.
And then the code is broken. 2 codes are broken, in fact.
Oh, they are. Yes, because after seeing this happen, that they failed to bring the Klaxosaur down, Ichigo breaks down, and as has happened before, Delphinium goes offline.
Because, she thinks he's dead. She thinks Hero is dead. Yep. And he looks pretty fucking dead. You know, the robot has become feral. It's getting annihilated. It's the 3rd time that he's been riding with 02. There's all the rumors. Like, it's all there. She puts it together. He's dead. She collapses. Yep. Her person she cares about most, gone.
Yeah. Goro tries to comfort her and also reminds her that we have to, keep our heads in the fight here because this is not over.
Fucking get up. Buck up. It's not over. We gotta go home alive.
Which is a fair point from Goro, but I couldn't help but think to myself, you're partially responsible for this. Because you knew that he had the techno cancer, and you didn't do anything about it. Nice one, Goro.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anything would change, because they did need Strelizia in this battle, as they do in every battle.
Yes. The point is, though, is that I'm going to spoil this ahead of time for you folks, and I don't know if it may very well come up in a later episode, but it sure as shit doesn't come up here. Goro knowing about the techno cancer does not matter.
The techno cancer.
It does not matter that he knows. It is much the same as it is, again, maybe it'll come up later, but this is not something that Ichigo learns about. It is not relevant to what happens in the episode, because, well, again, as we suggested last time, it does turn out that Hero does live. So it doesn't matter. It was a thing that was established that they didn't utilize. What the fuck is the point? The episode 5 has all this wonderful build-up, and so much of it is in the service of, why have it happen in the first place then? If it's not going to be relevant now, because everything's okay in the end. Like, that's the thing I said about the journey. Like, I wasn't expecting Hero to die, but I was expecting these things to be called out. That, Goro maybe doesn't necessarily have Ichigo's best interest or the team's best interest at heart when he should. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So, whatever, that's a thing that you don't need to pay attention to in episode 5, because it doesn't fucking matter. Okay. I mean, am I wrong here, Don? What's your thought on this?
No. I mean, I can't think of anything to counter what you've said, really.
It might be relevant later.
Yeah, it could be, but yeah, for now it looks very much like Goro did a thing that was shitty, but it didn't end up mattering too much given the way things shook out at the end of this episode.
Uh-huh.
There's so much more. Even though there's a little runtime left in the episode, so much happens.
This is the point. This is the point where things really started bombing out for me, and I get what they were trying to go for here, but I have a number of problems with how they came across it. So
He did.
So first thing I want to point out here is that although this isn't revealed until a little bit later, this is important for a thing I'm going to discuss. Hero has actually been flat out knocked out of his driver's seat in the Franxx. Now, I am massively speculating here, but the connection thing between the two pilots, as far as I understand it, has to happen when they're sat in the cockpit. Doesn't happen anywhere else. That must be how it happens. It would help if the show had explained this at any point, but it hasn't. So I'm going off wild speculation here, but it's relevant for what's going to happen in a minute.
It's a deduction. I wouldn't say you're speculating. This is a reasonable inference you're making.
It's the only thing I can think of because it's the only way in which they seem to be connected in any way. But anyway, so Hero appears in a dream world, and he has a line, and this is again the show's wonderful tradition of things that completely crush the intended atmosphere, and he just goes, "Oh, I died."
Yep.
If he can't take this seriously, how the fuck am I meant to take it seriously? Oh, I died. Like it's nothing. What the flying fuck? Well, he was always dead because he was brain fucking dead, that's why.
I don't know. I mean, how should he react, I guess?
With being a little less nonchalant than that. Like the way it came across.
Well, I mean, I guess you're sort of assuming that his mind and body are a similar sort of state. Like perhaps he's very foggy, perhaps he's not really. I mean, like when your spirit's passing on into the afterlife, I think it's a fairly sort of common thing to just kind of, you're overwhelmed and don't have all your wherewithal and wits about you, and you just sort of wake up and you're just like, wow, this is it. You know, he seems to be coming out of a haze and kind of letting go of his previous situation. But there's all this to say, it didn't bother me. It didn't, it didn't affect me too much because he was, that was him. He was letting go. He was giving up. He was like, well, I tried.
It was the very first thing he said, though. That it's not. He didn't question it. He's like, I wouldn't mind if he'd gone, am I dead? I don't know. But he's just like, oh, I'm dead.
Because he saw Naomi, I guess.
Oh, well, about that. I'll get to that in a moment. But this reaction honestly came across to me in the same way that you would be upset if you got blown up in Icaraga when you're playing on the arcade. Oh, I'm dead. Oh, I got shot in Time Crisis. Oh, I'm dead.
Well, he's not in any pain anymore, at least in that state. I don't know. I understand where you're coming from.
And okay, let's talk about Naomi.
Okay.
It has, to my knowledge, not been established that she is actually dead because there is a line in episode 2 that states that she's in the hospital.
Right.
So she's not dead. Or if she is dead, it has never been mentioned to us. You literally mentioned in the fucking first episode we did that she would be a millstone around his neck. How right you were. You also mentioned that he is Jesus in one point as well.
Yep.
So again,
yes.
Doc, you are on point for predictions on this. Congratulations, my friend.
He very much is Jesus.
You have smelled out the show's own bullshit. Congratulations. So yes, this Maria says, okay, are you happy with what happened? Like, I tried, I got to fly for a bit, I'm happy. And she's like, liar. You're a liar.
Just screwing your partner over again, leaving him out to dry.
What a surprise, hey?
Selfish.
Yep. So, after that, we then cut to a scene of 02 stood before the White Tree of Gondor. No, not that, sorry. No. And he's like, wait, why are you sad? I'm like, how do you know she's sad? You're looking at her from behind. But anyway, minor point. And he's like, he starts remembering like what she said about being a monster and how people were afraid of her because of her horns. And this cuts back and forth, by the way, to images of 02 going completely apeshit.
Which I thought was awesome.
This was terrifying.
That was so important for us to see. And so, like, here is her just entirely alone, entirely vulnerable, fighting for her life, everything, leaving nothing on the table, holding nothing back, bearing everything to survive. And she's been abandoned by her partner. You see in spirit on that side of things, Hero sort of feeling her sadness and disappointment and despondence at being alone. But man, seeing her desperate struggle was like, yeah, was pretty powerful and painful. It physically hurt me to see her going through all that. That was rough. And certainly this is a side we've not seen of her.
Yeah. I'm conflicted on how to feel about this because Hero dying at this point is in part her fault. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking or making an STI metaphor. That's crass, that's silly. I made that joke last time, but I didn't genuinely mean it. I'm not calling her a slut. What I am calling her out on is the fact that she knows that he was ill, like he was severely sick, and she just didn't let it happen. She just thought, I'll chance it. I'll see if it works. I'm conflicted on this because if it's her raging to survive and also because it's happened again to her, I get that, but just letting it happen and not doing something about it, what did you expect?
What do you think? What do you think she ought to have done?
Something? Like, did she just let Hero pilot with her and it has killed him? And if she's raging because she's upset about that,
when she's near death, she's near death as well.
Okay, I'll
she's
allow
being
it.
smashed to pieces.
Can I briefly come back to the fact that it's all well and good that the robot's smashing Strelizia against the wall here, but it really doesn't come across like they're in any immediate danger. It's got scuff marks.
Oh, really? I'd see. I think. I mean, you're seeing the cockpit like vibrate violently, and his fist is crashing down upon the animal robot that is like trying bravely to stand its ground. Like, to me, it was communicated like they're in the shit.
I don't know. With the ongoing way that Strelizia's felt OP, and the fact that there weren't any other warning signs, like there's no alarms in the cockpit or anything like that. They're not like, nothing's on fire. There's no smoke. There's no. I expect. I just wanted a couple more visual hints that they were in really serious immediate danger, because the fact that they survived the first two blows with barely scuff marks on them and not like Strelizia missing an arm or anything.
More battle damage. Battle damage necessary.
Yeah, going back to Ava, there were moments in which the Avas did lose like arms and limbs and such, and
yes, for sure.
It did genuinely come across that they were in serious danger when they were running out of power. The warning lights were on and everyone was losing their shit. Like, you've got people at Nerve like ringing other people on the phone, like, "Oh God, this is going wrong. We need to do this."
Yeah, no, they don't. It's not that powerfully conveyed. You're absolutely right. They don't do as good of a job there as that show did. I guess I thought that anything was possible at that point and they were in real danger because the standard Strelizia kills Klaxosaur method that has worked the previous 5 episodes, the robot just got up and said, "Fuck you," and crushed it against the building, killing Hero, basically. And yeah, and we seeing 02 so desperate, like communicate, like I was like, oh my God, they are. Yeah, and then the rest of it, but they could, I guess, like, an alarm and a panicked HQ would not have gone amiss there, for sure.
Or even things like the screens cracking on the inside of Strelizia, structural damage, smoke, fire. Because once Hero does, I'm going to come back to this later, but I just want to mention, once he does get back up and Strelizia is in action again, it's like none of it ever happened. All the scuff marks are gone. Business as usual.
Pristine, like new, mint. Smoke-free home.
Yeah, there's no grit to it. It's just impervious.
These robots are classy. They have the clean faces mod. No scuff marks.
Well, get the buff and shine on. You get the proper, program for your giant mechanized robot when you take it through the car wash. Make sure it's, properly waxed and valeted.
Now, Hero, on the other hand, looks like absolute dog shit.
He's dead.
When he wakes up. Oh.
Well. Okay. This is it. This is the fucking nadir. This is the elfin lead, the dog is back, after one episode moment. Because Hero comes to realization that he wants to pilot with 02 to look after carefully. I thought to myself, didn't we have this in episode 4? And you might say to me,
no.
Oh, well, Shads, didn't you just literally say that maybe he didn't mean it previously because that's how he acts? And I would say, you're right, but we're now going round in circles to the same conclusions we've already made. This is really redundant.
It's different. So in 4, he's still, I think, chugging off of the selfish motivation. You know what I mean? He says, we were mad because he said he found a pair of wings to grab a hold of. He took them for himself. And this time, he says something quite different.
Well, he says that in his head, but what he says to Zero 2 in particular, in 4, and if that's the case, though, it still portrays him as a shithead. We don't win whatever interpretation of this you want to take.
Sure. I mean, he's a growing kid. They're all, like you've pointed this out before, too. They're all kind of shitty and figuring shit out, you know. I mean, he definitely had more selfish, or not even selfish, you know, because a lot of his line he towed was about protecting other people, but it was very self-focused and concerned with his own kind of fulfillment and satisfaction, whereas what he ends up saying here is that, like, his wings exist for Zero 2. He wants to fly, not because it brings him any kind of fulfillment, satisfaction, what have you. He wants to do for her, I guess, to protect her. So yeah, he's changing somewhat. You know, I feel like this is a significant shift for him.
It felt like a significant shift previously, though, and then it's undermined itself. So I'm just incredulous as to what's happened going forward.
Well, I don't know. Did it feel like a shift? You mean episode 4? See, I thought in 4 he totally was still like, you know, haha, I got my wings. Whereas now he's like, we're like the Geon.
God, you're right. Actually, he does specifically mention that. He didn't mention it previously. Like, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe it is him unpricking himself
to a small degree.
We're 6 episodes in, and we've just basically gone round in circles, in my opinion.
For him, but for her, I think so. All right. So going back to what you said about her not doing anything, like, then this is total speculation on my part, but like, I think that everyone that pilots with her, like, there's potential for that person to go through a very painful process to get to the point that Hiro now finds himself at the end of the episode. And a lot of people don't make it. Hiro made it.
Because he's a special specimen.
And so, like, yes, the show has been very upfront about saying that. Yeah, he's so special. But, like, yeah, so that, I think, is why she's not in any hurry to be like, no, don't pilot with me. You know, we don't really see how she acts with other people, but with her darling, she has very high hopes for. And she's always said she's had high hopes for, and I think those hopes are that he could overcome this trial. Not
with what she said to Ichigo in the previous episode. If he dies, I don't give a shit.
Well, exactly. Well, like you said, it's armor. It's deflection.
Okay,
like,
okay,
clearly she doesn't feel that way. I mean, I think that we absolutely felt that at the time and still feel that like, oftentimes, especially in her dealings with Ichigo, who she knows has feelings for Hiro as well, like, she's cagey about how she really feels. And in a certain way, I mean, if he does die, like, he will have been someone who didn't live up to her expectations, because she really did believe, like, you know, she cares about this darling, she believes he'll make it through, but if he doesn't, then he did not have what it took. Now, I believe she's very happy that he did have what it took.
If we keep having to have this plot point keep going back up, though, it's just going to get really old really fast. I'm not necessarily against characters taking steps back, but Hiro never really started from a likable position to begin with. He's been a bland, like, grey splurge on this show. He is...
Has he been your techno cancer?
Yes. And unfortunately, unlike the techno cancer, he will not go away. Speaking of which, so when he comes to this realization, and this is why I said before he was no longer connected to 02 at all, after he comes to this realization, the techno cancer is cured. It goes. It's gone. That's it. What the fuck? What? We don't even know what this condition is. It certainly wasn't the thing that killed the previous people that we know of, otherwise it would be a known factor. All we know is it's yellow blood cells, which I can't believe I didn't pick up on previously. I thought, that's bollocks, because that's jaundice. And he's certainly sure as shit not suffering from jaundice. So, he cured it through the power of his emotions. And fucking really? What horse crap?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. And, well, look, this is going to be possibly hypocritical of me, because there are certain non-robot shows that when they do this sort of thing, it could be off-putting to me. But I feel that it is the essence of the super robot genre to have human will made manifest in some way, to have a hot-blooded miracle, if you will, occur. And as you like not unlike what you were saying with Gunbuster and animating 13 quadrillion robot or alien deaths, like it's hard to convey those things happening, right? And that kind of abstraction put to animation can be challenging. And I think I think it's a trope. It's a well-worn sort of thing, but for me and my super robot shows, I'm entirely fine with robots or pilots or whatever miraculously overcoming obstacles. Like I'm totally cool with that, and I understand people not being satisfied with that being my opinion, but I just think it's a staple of this stuff.
That's fine. I'm not gonna. This is a your mileage may vary thing, but I also have to tie it back with the fact that this was again established with Goro knowing about this, but now it's just suddenly not an issue anymore.
That is a problem. I think that's a thread that was dropped. Maybe they'll address it later, but for now it looks bad.
It feels very deflating as well that... Okay, let me address something else. This episode feels like it's the end of the season.
It sort of does. It sort of does.
And yet it's not. So when they start pulling this shit out of the woodworks, what else is going to happen? Like, I mentioned before Australia being OP. If they have a fight again, how am I meant to feel any tension about this? Like,
yeah.
They've now solved Hero's dying, so he's not going to obviously have this happen again.
Well, but now 02 is on the downswing. She looked very mortal and very vulnerable, and he came out of the cockpit holding her up, which Ichigo was like, you could see on her face like, whoa, didn't expect that.
To be fair, though, they also established that 02 heals very quickly, so I'm not that concerned.
Sure.
I'm not that concerned.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, for that is true. But yeah, no, like, where we go from here...
Oh, I know where we're going, and we're going to get to it.
It is anyone's guess. I mean, it's, Mystery Man shows up at the very end, but...
Okay, so yes, Hero lives. I don't know, by the way, how he got this insight to 02 because he wasn't connected anymore via the Franxx. Whatever, doesn't matter.
They done connected spiritually. Because he was dead, so he was like floating in the ether, and he could be like, oh, this is the manifestation of your feelings, and when you touched your horns to me, we connected, and I feel what you're feeling, Cobra lady, and I will not abandon you. I will no longer fight for myself. Allow me to revive myself from the dead and twist and split this formerly GameCube Klaxosaur into blue bits.
I swear, right, if it turns out that Hero was created through something called Project Lazarus, I will not watch any more of this show. I will quit it. If it's Project fucking Lazarus or Project fucking Osiris or something like that, I'm a calling it quits. Fuck it.
What if the lab is called Nazareth? Then what will you do?
Drink myself into an early grave. So yes, Strelizia reactivates. They pull the plan off again to give it an opening, and this time Hero does streak the weak spot for massive damage. And this bit, I just threw my hands up because the Flaxosaur flies into the air as they drive it upwards. A pair of angel wings sprout, and I'm just like...
That was so fucking awesome! That was amazing! Like, the wing explosion because the two of them have, like, become the Geon. Like, that was so badass.
I really felt like this jumped the shark.
That was so good!
But I will make a concession here that I am following that feeling of that, jumping the shark, followed on how I was feeling up until that point. So it's not unreasonable for me to say that it's just my mileage on that one, and I'm not going to say that it's objectively bad or anything. God, I can't say about anything, but you get my point. It's just to me, it just felt, wow, that's real silly. But anyway, so yes, they win. The Klaxosaurs are all gone. All 15 of the Klaxosaurs, sorry, I'm at 150, are now dealt with. And there's no credit sequence this time either. They have a couple of closing scenes, much like I did with episode 1, actually. Ichigo starts crying when she sees Hero come out, and I just thought to myself, just go to a better anime, love, please. You're too good. You're too good for this place.
Find a better man. Or lady.
Oh shit, I've just remembered. Also, Doc's a fucking...
Dr. Franxx! He just shows... Yep, he wandered out of Mega Man Legends again into the shot.
I was like, where the fuck have you been, Gramps?
I know! He got excited when he saw him come back to life. He was like, ooh!
Is he on day release from the care home?
I just finished my game of shuffleboard. What's this? Heroes resurrected from the dead? How interesting.
Nana, by the way, looks so surprised this. I actually thought that off-screen he had grabbed her ass again.
It would not... That fucker. It would not surprise me.
Yeah. So yeah, that all happens. There's a couple of shots like the kids from 26 and 13, meeting up and shaking hands and stuff. No one has actually died. And that genuinely surprised me because I absolutely thought at least one of the 26 Cookie Core kids would be dead.
Yeah.
But whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Characters don't need to die to necessarily sell the gravity of a situation. I mean, to be honest, if that had happened at that point, I would have probably not liked it because everything was so goofy.
It would not have set well with you, probably. You'd be like, this episode? You died in this episode? Ooh, there's one more. I have one more part. When, Hiro is talking about his new kind of reason for flying and for being, they have 02, a brief line of inner monologue, or inner dialogue, rather. It's not necessarily an answer to Hiro, but it sort of is, because she says I'm going to have to kill a lot more Klaxosaurs. And it just, what a tease. So interesting, because, as you said, in the middle of the episode, she says she fights and kills because she's a monster. And then at the end of the episode, they drop that. It just makes me so curious, what is driving this girl on? What does she want?
It's a better hook than what happens after that.
Oh, this is some bullshit. This is
I hate this.
I mean, it's so stupid. I really dislike this thing when anime does this or anything does this. It felt like a garbage Sherlock ending. It's Moriarty again.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so let's discuss the concepts of post-credit scenes in general. And the point of reference I'm going to use here is one that your average viewer, you yourself may be very familiar with, which is that from the first Avengers movie. Avengers Assemble in the UK or the Avengers in the US, whatever. So there are two post-credit scenes in that film. One of them is of the group of Avengers, Iron Man, etc., eating shawarma in New York City. Now, that's a play on a line that Tony Stark says earlier after the fight's over, and it's just a nice little bit of comic relief after everything's winding down after the battle's over. Don't mind that in the slightest. It's not plot relevant, it's just funny that they're actually literally eating shawarma after the invasion is dealt with.
The next scene is the Hulk breakdancing.
That would have been amazing. Hulk breakdance like Grandmaster Flash. You really can't touch the Hulk. Okay, so the next scene is the one in which Thanos is revealed to the audience, the guy who creepy Skeletor face man was speaking to earlier in the film before the invasion actually happens, when Loki's there. Now, I actually don't mind this, and I'll tell you why I don't mind this, because, for one, Thanos was an established character in Marvel canon, generally speaking. He's fan service for the next bit. Learning about Thanos, if you don't know anything about him, you actually learn about him from watching Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and then Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So he gets properly established later, on a very personal level, by the way, and a very effective level with how he treated Gamora and Nebula. But he gets established for people who are not in the know later. He's fan service. He's like, oh, that's neat. Now, that's an example, I would say, in both cases, of good post-credit scenes, because they're not plot necessary. You don't need to know that Thanos exists to understand the plot of Guardians of the Galaxy, because he's properly introduced in that film of itself, nor do you need to know about it for any of the other Marvel movies then. And the shawarma thing is just comic relief. Now, let me tell you about an example of a really bad fucking post-credit scene. And this is not Darling in the Franxx, by the way, but I'm going to just use this as contrast, because it's actually meant to be exactly the same as the Thanos scene, but it doesn't work. And it's from RWBY Season 3.
Your favourite.
The season which killed my interest in the show so dead, I had to literally bury it outside. Okay, now, to give you some context, in RWBY, the enemy forces are monsters known as Grimm. And there is a narration over the post-credit scene in this crystalline, alien-looking environment of some lady, and we see this lady who's a human-looking Grim, and she, as it turns out from what I've read of later seasons, because I absolutely refuse to watch any more of them, because why would I invest my time in something that utterly pissed all over my interest in the show? But anyway, she turns out to be the main villain. Now, here's the problem with this. Thanos, in the Avengers, you did not need to know he was the main villain behind the scenes. He was established properly later, and you did not need to know about him at that point. This lady, named Salem, you have no fucking clue, even if you were a Ruby fan, who she is, because she was never established in or out of the show prior to that point. It's just there as a really bad cock tease, essentially. And I was supremely annoyed at this, because I thought, this is literally your hook for the next season. I have no context for who this is. It's just mystery and shock value that's devoid of any substance. It's crap. Franxx takes this just a tiny little bit further, because not only is it like a bunch of fucking dudes who we've never seen before, it also actively contradicts what's going on in the fucking battle, because we see these three guys. I wasn't paying much attention to this part. I was just seeing red, whatever. And they have a Franxx with them. It's established with the leg. Why were they not in the battle? Okay, maybe this will be explained later. Fine, but who the fuck are these people? Like, they mentioned, like, what was it? What the blonde one says? The one who does look like Cypher?
Well, Yoda 9. That's it.
What? Who? What? What is... Who are you? What are you? Why are you?
I can tell you why. Why are you is... Here's a character design for everyone who hasn't been enjoying the character designs or hasn't found one they really like.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get to see him in the bath. Maybe it won't even be a him. Like here's an appealing character design that you'll get to see next week. I'm sure that they've, written an arc and all that shit, but like just sticking it here at the end of this whenever... I don't know. I thought the episode ending was quite good without this. I did not enjoy this hello moment.
Well, here's the thing, right? I watched this episode and I paused it with 10 seconds left because I just wanted to tweet something out about it. And then I started playing. It was like it knew I had just tweeted out and I didn't like it and said, "Oh, right, really, motherfucker? Well, here's something else that you don't like, bitch." Okay, so... Let's do a comparison direct with episode 5 going into episode 6 and episode 6 going into 7. Episode 5's build-up and the momentum it brought into this fight was all massively done. We've got many things established and set up. Potential conflicts, potential situations that can arise. Meets through being a potential weak link. Heroes, techno-cancer. The drama with Ichigo. The fact that the battle is established to potentially be very fatal and with great consequences and great stakes at hand. Now, disregarding the fact that I feel it didn't really deliver on any of that, going into episode 7, all we have is hints that 02 has a troubled past, which we already kind of had and just got a little bit more of, and these guys. And what a staggering admission of a show to make that it has dealt its hand, dealt very little, and now has nothing to really hook you in apart from this incredibly cheap tactic of establishing mystery characters for mystery's sake. It's absolutely shocking.
Shambolic.
Yeah, the contrast between the transition from 5 to 6 and 6 to 7 is mind-blowing.
It was real dumb. I really did hate it. What the fuck, man? And I could grow to like that character, who the fuck knows? But yeah, that drop-in was... poop.
I'm really worried as well. This is just going to be a trite case of a rogue group of Franxx pilots who are like got their own agenda or something. I don't know.
Interesting. My assumption is that like they know 02, or at least he does.
Everyone knows 02. This doesn't like.
Well, by that I mean like really knows who she is about her past, so we can kind of get into more of her past, and that Yoda 9 might be sort of his own designation for her or something weird like that. This is just my wild assumption, given, as you say, we've been left with hints and wanderings at 02's past, and then here comes this guy. Yeah, the visual cues and all that just, that is what made me think that. But I could be entirely wrong. Who can say?
If it was truly about something they hid that, they could have dropped that at the end to truly give it a hook. Where he reveals a fact. He tells us something we didn't know previously. The only thing I didn't know previously is that the show can somehow bottom out even harder than it's done previously. Great. Congratulations.
Oh, do you think this episode was worse than episode 2 and 3?
I think that individual moment was a nadir.
Yeah. It was one of the bad ones, for sure. It was so brief and so inconsequential that, like, it didn't affect my enjoyment of the overall episode very much, but, like, yeah, we agree. It bad.
This episode had already floundered for me so hard that this just felt like the cherry on the shit sundae. So, yeah. Okay, that's it. That's Franxx 6. Do you have anything else you want to discuss about the episode, Doc, or have we covered everything?
Man, I think we pretty exhaustively covered everything. So I'll just say that I give this episode of Darling in the Franxx 4 red Cobra hoods out of 5.
Fair enough. For me, you already know all my reason on this. I actually was going to go in harder on this episode with a working theory I had about Franxx really utterly undoing itself with how its fan service and its direction contrasted with the message they were trying to get across. But I'm going to hold that to my chest for the time being until the show is complete and see if that bears fruit or not. And I don't want it to, but if it turns out to be the case, I think Franxx is actually going to probably be one of the worst things I'll have ever seen. But I don't want it again. That's just a theory. We've got 18 more episodes to go. We'll see. For now, I am going to give this episode, and this is mostly on the merit of the action scenes and the music, and not so much anything else. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 Swedish modded giant GameCubes.
Bull HQ building.
Yes.
Like, man, I did not expect that's very high. That's much higher than I thought that you would go.
Well, this is true, and I've spent most of this episode complaining, but the action is legitimately great. But I can't really discuss it much more than say the action is legitimately great. I don't have the language tools necessary to properly convey that. I'm not an animator, I'm not a Sakuga guy. I'm a man who focuses on his narrative, but can still appreciate great action. And the action is great. But everything that's like sandwiched in and around the action is, a lot of it at least to me, is, with the exception of certain bits about 02, absolute cack.
I do hope that, how do I say this? So the moments at the end of 6 with Hiro calming 02's rage, hugs her, she calms down, he caresses her head, says like, I'm here with you, I'm not going to abandon you. This is him, saving her, him pulling his weight as one of the co-pilots of Strelizia and coming through and helping, being the huge part of why they win this fight. Previous episodes, it has been exactly the opposite. 02 has had to drag him along and hold him up and support him, and she has been the reason that they have won. I think taking all the episodes as a whole, like, this is a nice thing of them supporting each other. It's not, you don't have the man Hiro saving the day exclusively. He's been, he's had his bacon hauled out of the fire by her way more times. It's nice that he got to contribute and do his part and help and as he grows as a person. I just hope that the rest of the show is not that. I hope the balance doesn't tilt heavily toward Hiro saving the day exclusively, because then it will just feel less special than if 02 or them together are kind of doing it.
I have to say, though, that I don't have much hope for that, because the characters in the show themselves make a mountain out of him. They worship him, basically.
They have done, but he's still gotten, he's still fallen on his face a lot of times.
I don't know. I'm not confident. I'm more than anything just upset that all of the promise that 5 held, and the fact that, in some ways, it almost feels to me like this show is serialized when it actually isn't. Because serialized shows often have bad episodes and good episodes, and that's fine. Like, you can watch Star Trek and you can cherry pick the good stuff and not watch any of the bad stuff. But this is a linear narrative, and if it is the case that we've got so many different people storyboarding, like the fucking Acura putting in that butt shot, as opposed to the otherwise masterful storyboarding of the previous episode by a woman, read into that what you will, by the way, folks. Maybe it needs an overriding vision behind it rather than a motley crew people taking different duties each week. Maybe it needs a showrunner like a Masaki Yuasa or a Shoji Kawamori with a consistent vision for what they want to do.
I think that anime will never be this, or at least it has not been for decades and decades since it started. And it's talk about not having hope. I don't have a lot of hope that it will, like, it's very much a collective endeavor all the way from top to bottom. And you have your auteurs, to be sure, but even in the case of someone like Yuasa or Kawamori, especially Kawamori on some projects he's worked on, like, there's always episode directors, always different storyboarders, always different people directing animation, just because the endeavor is so massive and the work ethos is a collective one.
Yeah.
Is a team based, you know what I mean? So it's, that's why I'm glad that we're shouting out these people who are kind of heading up the episode, because this sort of stuff I think is often overlooked, and kind of praise or blame is laid at the feet of head writers and directors and everything, and they certainly play their part in it. But sometimes you could throw Shoji Kawamori into a project, and the project will still only be as good as the people drawing it and the story that has been come up with, and all that sort of stuff.
I'm not going to downplay or deny the individual creators behind this. What I'm saying is that there needs to be a consistent idea.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, there's not. I don't feel. Yes. It is lacking singular vision.
Yeah, and I don't know what I'm meant to take Franxx as. Is it meant to be sexy and provocative? It certainly doesn't come across nearly enough as that. For that reason alone, you have to sit through a lot of stuff to get to the actual provocative bits, to be honest. So it makes their presence all the more out there, sticking out like a sore thumb. Is it about the character drama? It's not great, so that's not a selling point for it.
How dare you?
The robot action is probably the best bit of it, but why
can't it be about all of the things? I like a mixture of all.
I've seen shows that do that. Macross Frontier. How many times do I have to keep raising the spectrum of Macross fucking Frontier? That's got all of those things. It's got fan service up the fucking wazoo.
Frontier is so good. Holy shit.
It's got great character development, and it's got great fights. It has all those things. And that's why I'm saying, why can't Franxx do this? Because I've seen it done elsewhere.
Yeah.
And this is a capable studio behind this.
I know, given... I said a lot of things a minute ago, but these folks are no Shoji Kawamori. And it is a co-production, so perhaps this is sort of part of the perils of co-production.
Too many cooks.
That things are even more fragmented, and perhaps communication is harder. I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, we'll never know in the West, or perhaps later interviews will be translated, and we can have some more insight into this process and everything. But yeah, no, I really do hear where you're coming from. Like, the show isn't as coherent as it could be.
Yeah. Well, let me just end on this point then, Doc. What, in your opinion, is the show meant to be about? Narratively and thematically.
I don't know.
We're a quarter of the way in, and it hasn't established that.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure. Like, I think I have theories. I won't know whether I'm on the right track until the end. I mean, I think it is certainly, as you say, about robot fights and sex appeal. But as to the purpose of the motifs, as to the nature of these kids piloting and what that's meant to signify, and kind of the dystopic world, like all these things, like there's so much that I don't know that it's hard to say.
And again, we are a quarter of the way in, and we don't know. That's damning. Yatum and Knight did that in one episode.
It's true.
I'm starting to get mad again, so I'll cut this off quickly. But that, honestly, to me, feels kind of pathetic that they can't even give people a solid answer as to what it's about 6 episodes in a 24-episode show.
Yeah.
Up your game, Franxx, for fuck's sake.
I think, I hope that it's otherwise, but I'm thinking that this show, the narrative and the themes and what it wants to quote unquote say, while all that stuff will be there, I think that it might be secondary to things like character designs and aesthetic and merchandising and that sort of stuff.
Toy sales.
Yeah, figures.
Yeah.
Pillows. Well, this is just a thought I'm having. It's still too early to say for me on that.
Yeah, I don't want to be right about this. I mean, like I said, I held my hands up last time when I thought I was wrong about the way the show was going. And I still think episode 5 is great.
Should you apologize for apologizing?
I think I'm going to sign off and say good night, folks. Thank you very much for listening, as always. Let's very quickly shout out where we are. You can find me at Shaden1010 on Twitter and at Shaden on CuriousCat.me. Doc?
At The Subtle Doctor on Twitter, CuriousCat.me/The Subtle Doctor.
Indeed. And as always, folks, for good and for bad, for episodes that are great and for episodes that are terrible, for differing opinions, but all legit, from wherever you may hear them from, we'll still say this. Embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe, and a very good night.
Mwah.